NATO there, without the European Union and those people, which is the summit today in Washington. I think if Trump would have held out, says, if we're going to sit down, we're going to meet with the neighbors that front Russia, and we're going to meet down together collectively to show the clout that he has behind him. And with him meeting just him and Putin, it just shows that it's America against Russia, or America's leadership over Russia. And to have Zelensky not involved, I think, was a mistake. But I say that's one perspective. The other one is it was an icebreaker, and maybe that's what was needed to have this next meeting. We'll find out the meeting they're going to have in the White House today with all those other countries.
Well, the interesting line in that first opener that the New York Times put out is it said that talking about Putin and Trump. I'm sorry, there's a funny thing on the screen there, kind of threw me off. It said that they left on good terms, talking about Putin, with the U.S. president. And what it makes me ask is, what do they want to see? What do they expect to see? Do they want him to have an MMA fight? You know what I mean? I mean, what do they want out of this? And I was just thinking of a couple examples here. George W. Bush said that he saw Putin's soul, Ted, when he met with Putin.
Yeah, and that's right, he did.
Yeah, you've heard me say, I think, before that I don't know if Putin has a soul. I mean, he was the head of the KGB, and I think on the application it says soulless on it, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, Hillary said we're hitting the reset button. So, she wasn't president, but they're resetting. And then,
Thank God.
Yeah. And then, of course, Obama, everybody talks about Obama, and we're going to play a video here in just a moment. But, Obama had even better, cozier relationships with Putin than Trump ever has. And, let's play this video real quick, Ted, and we'll come back.
Before you go to that,
go ahead.
Before you go to that video, I want people to think of the quid pro quo that really comes out of this video with Obama and Putin. And the other thing is, think of what Putin said at the very end of this summit, that had Trump been president, he wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. So, I mean, that's a huge win for Trump there, because that's what he said. Had I been president, they wouldn't have invaded. And whether that's really truthful or not, I don't know, or if Putin's just playing to Trump's ego, but it's on record now, so he's got to take that as a huge win. But go ahead and play that video, because this is really where we were with Obama that led to the invasion of Ukraine.
Well, let me set it up very quickly in case people haven't seen this. This is when Mr. Obama was president, and he was meeting with Medvedev, who was, I think, the foreign minister at the time of Russia. And this is supposedly an off mic. He didn't realize it was being taped. I'm not, I don't put anything past him, but it's very interesting what is caught on this microphone. We'll play it. Go ahead.
If you listen, he'll say, are the translators off? Obama asked that.
So let's check it out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Translator. This is my last election. Yeah. And after my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and Alexander.
And there you have it. I don't know if people could hear it clearly, but what Obama leans into Medvedev and tells him that, I'm in an election. Once the election is over, then I'll have, I can really negotiate with you.
I have a lot more flexibility. You talk about quid pro quo, and go back to the first impeachment. It was all quid pro quo. I've never heard that used so many times, but all the left media, they're all on the same talking points. Quid pro quo, quid pro quo. What Obama did was quid pro quo. What Joe Biden did when he was negotiating with the Russian district attorney to get the guy fired is, we're going to hold up $1 billion in aid unless you fire this guy. And they fired him. And you talk about quid pro quo. Where is the media? The legacy media is garbage. And that's why programs like ours are important, because we're going to those things that are exposing this. And that's why there's so much confusion out there in the world, because these media just play what they want to play to change a narrative instead of giving you the facts where you can figure it out yourself.
Yeah, well, you're referring that deal with Joe Biden when he was vice president for Obama,
Right.
I think. And what really stood out on that video, and we don't have that one teed up, but he's talking about that $1 billion, and I'm going to withhold it. And
Right.
he said he was asked about the president or whatever, and he said, call him. In other words, Obama knows about it, just call him. And real confident. So, I mean...
No, arrogant.
Arrogant. And, think about this. Trump got impeached for far, far less than either one of those the President Obama did with Russia, or certainly with Vice President and later President Biden.
He got impeached, John. He got impeached for being accused of doing exactly what the Democrats did. Biden or Obama should have been called out on this when he's patting Medyev's arm and saying, I'll have more flexibility. This is my last election. I have more flexibility after this. And then he pats him on the arm in kind of a snaky way. I mean, the guy just really reveals who he is. And I hope they wind up roasting him with these investigations they're doing on the Trump the scam that they ran on the American people that led into the first and second impeachments.
Yeah, well, I think the best we can probably hope for in that is public knowledge of what actually happened. I don't see the perp walk happening, but I share people's sentiment about it's probably deserved. But real quickly, because you kind of mentioned it, go back with Hillary too. Hillary sold out our uranium to Russia, gave control over that.
There's a great book by Peter Schweitzer that I think it's called Uranium One. I think that's the name of the book. But it goes into the very intricacies of the Clinton Foundation, of Bill and Hillary, how they got these deals and they sold our uranium to Russia. And then they got donations in the Clinton Foundation, which when it started to be investigated under, I think, Trump 1, it got shut down immediately. There was over $1 billion in there. And the foundation got shut down immediately, so they couldn't investigate it. I mean, this is how snaky the Clintons are, the Obamas, the Bidens. I mean, I know where I'm getting off track here, but just think of what Biden did. Preemptive pardons. Preemptive pardons for all the people that he listed. And it was mainly Biden's family. Of course, Hunter is in there. For any acts that are done illegally in the future. I mean, that is unprecedented. I've never seen that in government before. And that's snaky. That is just, it's treacherous. It's treasonous. I mean, again, how anybody can vote for a Democrat to put them in office knowing they do these things. And we can go on to Adam Schiff and Elizabeth Warren. And I know you're going to go to Elizabeth Warren here in a minute. But they'll tell you anything to get you to vote for them so that they can have power. And they want to have that power to destroy this nation as a constitutional republic.
Well, you always spur a thought in me there, Ted. And,
that's my job.
We're going to, I appreciate that. So we're going to talk about a little more in depth towards the end of this segment about the European meeting with President Trump today, Zelensky, and foreign leaders and the Secretary General of NATO. But you mentioned snaky and about having the Europeans involved in Alaska deal, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but they're pretty snaky too, because they're literally still financing Putin's war against Ukraine with the oil and everything. And there's a lot of evidence that they don't want to really give up buying oil from Putin, either directly or indirectly. So there's a lot of snakiness to go around.
Well, there is. And that's where I think I had a problem when I was in Congress, because I see black and white. I mean, it's hard for me to see shades of gray unless I was looking at radiographs of a horse or something. It's all black and white and shades of gray. But when you come down to policies and you want relationships in business, I give you my word, you give me your word, and we shouldn't vary from that. And then the work behind the scenes. And like you said, we want peace in Ukraine for the Europeans to say that. But at the same time, they're funding Putin's war machine by buying his oil and natural gas. It's your work. They're counterintuitive. And I agree with you. And that's where again, like I said, I have problems in D.C. They said, well, we got to get our debt under control. I'm like, by God, we're here. Let's do it. And of course, then the sausage making comes and never happens.
Yeah. Well, I think you don't do yourself justice about the black and white situation, because I've never really heard you talk about this, but I've thought about it quite a few times, that as a large animal vet like you were, you should have been very prepared for all the horses patoots you would see in D.C., because no one has probably seen more of the south end of a northbound mule than you, sir.
Got a lot of that organic fertilizer on me, and I got a lot of that stuff on me in D.C. And as I've said before, I prefer the organic kind because you can wash that off. That other stuff, man, it just wears you down.
It's pretty sticky, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't really fertilize anything other than corruption.
Well, people are debating about whether Trump had the upper hand or Putin had the upper hand. That you could make a case that both of them got something out of the meeting from a personal sense, not to necessarily help Ukraine. But, Donald Trump, one thing about it, man, he did set the stage for what happened in Alaska. And I want to play this video of basically him welcoming Putin. And you'll see, if you haven't seen this already, I know you probably have, Ted, the bombers fly over. I want you to see, this is what really stood out to me, that Putin kind of looks up like that, but Donald Trump knows all this is going to happen. He never bats an eye at it, man. And Putin looks up and down. But check this out. We'll come back and talk about it. It's pretty funny to me. I mean, to me, they talk about who's got the upper hand. I mean, Donald Trump is as much Hollywood as he is businessman, right? That was all. If you don't think he planned that and staged that, then you just don't know Donald Trump. But I love the fact that Putin looked up and Donald Trump's just like, no big deal. I think in that one thing he was showing, I think we have the bigger. It's like two bulls meet up and they want to show which one is the bigger stud. I think Donald Trump was saying, mine swings bigger than yours. What'd you think about that video, Ted?
I'm trying to get that visual out of my mind there, John. Thank you. No, I think you're right. I think it was all staged. I think it was very good. I think it was appropriate. And, Putin, I would have loved to see him look up there and really exclaim holy mackerel, look at that. That's huge. That must be awesome to be able to own those things and really play into that. He kind of looked at it and it kind of threw him off guard the way he looked. But you brought up the animal world again, and I've got to comment on that. The difference between humans and the animal world is, in general, now sometimes the fights in the animal world go to the death. But a lot of times, as you brought up the bulls, they'll sit there, they'll ram heads, they'll throw each other down, they might gore one or the other. But then they know who won and who lost, and they walk away. And it never happens again. Whereas humans, if they lose, they're going to find a way to undercut you and come back and destroy you. And I only wish we had as much common sense as the animal world does.
Absolutely. Well, back to this article from the New York Times. Here's a few of their, quote, takeaways. This is in New York Times. They said the leaders, talking about Donald Trump, did not reveal an agreement. And it says here, in a brief joint appearance before departing, both leaders alluded in vague terms to making headway, but they did not provide any clarity about what issues they discussed. It said Mr. Trump also did not specify where the leaders still disagreed. But Trump is trying to make a peace deal, Ted. He's not trying to win points with the media. It's like the media wants to make it sound like, well, you need to answer our questions. Donald Trump, he has an agenda separate than them. It's not to please the media.
He really does. And yeah, you're not going to satisfy the media. I mean, they're going to spin things. I've had them and pretty much written out answers for them, and they spin it the way they want it to use against you or to build their agenda. The thing that, when I look at this and I read some of the comments that Trump made afterward is, well, we didn't get a deal. We're not going to get a deal at this point. But he rated it a 10 out of a 10 meeting. Now, just the mere fact that you met, I mean, that has some merit in there. The mere fact that Putin came to America really gives him a lot of credibility that, he was invited to the U.S. and didn't get arrested. But what Trump said afterwards, I found kind of off base, saying that, you know what, Zelensky needs to come to a peace deal with them, and Russia's a very powerful nation. And so he's playing into Russia's hand, making it sound like they got the upper hand in this. And again, that's where I would have sat with all the NATO members and saying, hey, this is the deal. We are going to protect these borders, and we're considering bringing Ukraine into NATO. I know that's the last thing that our State Department wants. And, Putin, that may prompt him to war. We don't want that. But I think the threat of him, the threat of the NATO members allowing Ukraine to come in, if that's a card they can play and say, if you guys don't stop this, they're coming in here, and there's going to be another nation right at your doorstep that's going to be in the NATO alliance. That's a risky move, but I think it's something that if you play your cards right, that would get Putin to back off, because that guy, he's more of an emperor than anything else. He wants to reclaim Mother Russia, and I don't think he's going to stop till he does that.
Yeah, well, I heard an interesting perspective when I was coming into the studios today. By the way, I'm at the studio here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. If you've never been here before, you ought to check it out. It's in what they call Celebration Point in Gainesville, right off I-75. But when I was coming
great
in,
food,
I heard
great company.
Absolutely, and it's basically a monument to sports, but especially college football. And we're about to get that started here very soon. But I heard an interesting perspective. This lady who was on Breitbart News, actually, I'll give them credit, and she was talking about that Putin. One of the things he's using the Ukraine war for is to keep to basically, and I don't know if this is true or not, but he's got a lot of young people in Russia that might generate a revolt against him, but he's killing them off in the Ukraine and pacifying that aspect of it, or killing them off, and that it's preventing an uprising within Russia itself. I don't know if that's true, but I hadn't really thought about that. But if true, that's a pretty dangerous weapon. I didn't know if you
look at how he did that. I mean, they were conscripted. They had no choice. They were forced to join military. Now, yeah, they lost a lot of them. I forget the number. I've heard it's over 1 million on both sides have been killed, which is horrific. But then you think of the family members that are left. It's like when we go in and we bomb a supposed terrorist area where they're having a wedding, and you might kill 4 or 5 terrorists, but you've damaged the families of maybe 20. So you've created 20, 30, 40 terrorists by your actions. And that may be going on in Russia right now, when their family members get killed because they were forced to join and they know it was all Putin's fault. That may create more of a revolt. And we can only hope that there's a leadership change in Russia, but then you have to worry about who's going to replace that. We would hope it would be somebody that would be more welcoming to the free world, that would come along and worry about creating an income and a lifestyle for the Russian people instead of being a superpower.
Well, if that happens, it would be new to them, because I don't think anybody has actually come forward and done that. But I agree with that would be nice. But I want to make this one more point, and then we'll go to a quick commercial break. It says here in the New York Times article, the two men talking about Putin and President Trump took no questions from reporters who had been expecting to quiz the two leaders. Several had their hands in the air during what turned out to be Mr. Trump's closing remarks. And I'm sure that pissed off the media. But I wanted to put up this picture because perhaps Donald Trump should have had what Joe Biden had. Look at this, and this is a real picture. It really kind of sums up the difference between Trump and Biden at a personal level. Check this out. So there you have, as we're looking at, that's Biden's literally cheat sheet. They're worried that people are debating whether he was competent or not. I mean, if that doesn't show you, they literally tell him where to walk, who's going to be there, who's still alive, who's dead. The questions are choreographed, all that stuff. Donald Trump, I don't think he's ever had a cheat sheet in his life.
I've never seen him one, and you can understand why Joe Biden looked clueless so many times. He's got the wording sticking out the way he's holding that card, so he thinks it's a blank sheet of paper. But you're talking about Putin and that there's nobody to rise up to challenge him. Well, there was Alexei Navalny, who was the Russian dissident who was going to run against Putin. Putin poisoned him and his daughter. He barely survived. His daughter survived. Then they put him in jail. He got out. Then they put him back in jail. And then he died in prison. So that's what Putin does to anybody that's going to challenge him. He did that with the leader of the Wagner group, Poroshenko. I know it wasn't Poroshenko. I forget his name. Yevgeny, the guy that blew up in the plane. That guy was challenging Putin. Putin killed him, as he does. So it's hard for people to do that in Russia. But if you get enough people to say, the heck with you, we're going to throw you out. And I think there's enough people in Russia, especially in the higher ups in the military, that would welcome a change over there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying there wasn't people challenging, but whoever actually has won or not won hasn't really put the interests of the Russian people at the forefront. And you mentioned the Wagner group. Well, interestingly enough, he's reconstituted that, but they're over in Africa on some mission right now. So they're nowhere near.
Well,
Russia.
they've been over in Africa, Don.
Yeah,
they're over there, and what they're doing. So many of those countries were either under French, British, or Portuguese control from the colonial days. That the Wagner group is going in, working with the African countries for not forcing, but helping them push the French out or any foreign policy. As they push them out, Russia comes in there. So Russia is gaining a foothold in Africa as China is, which is all working against stability in Russia because they're not doing it for the benefit of the African people. They're doing it for the benefit of Russia and the war machine in Russia. In China, the people, where it's happening, where China is pushing their influence in Africa, it's to benefit the Communist Party, not the African people. And we see this over and over again. And that's the realm I work in when I go up to Washington. And we hear it all the time that the Russians and Chinese are everywhere there, and even the Cubans.
Absolutely. Well, we're talking about the Alaska summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to dive into this a little bit more and also talk about the meeting today at the White House with European leaders, including President Zelensky of the Ukraine. If you'd like to be a sponsor of our show, look at the little tagline that says Contact Freddie. Call that number, and we'd love to have you. Please support our sponsors. And Ted, we're going to come right back.
We appreciate
get right back into it. Go ahead.
No, I just said we appreciate it and look forward to enjoy the commercial break.
Yep.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. I wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
Welcome to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast. We're back from commercial break with the captain of our pirate ship, Ted Yoho, and I'm hosting here the old salty dog, John Martin. Well, Ted, when we went to break, we were talking about the Alaska summit between Vladimir Putin and President Trump. And I was using a template of the New York Times and their takeaways from it. It says on this one here, Putin secured wins before and after the summit. Now, this is kind of a common theme in the mainstream media, that Putin, just by being there, gets the upper hand. And you, in a way, alluded to that earlier. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think he did. I think just the recognition of you and I need to get together, Trump and Putin need to get together, shows that he thinks that that he can negotiate that with Putin. That gives him the credibility. The other thing is Putin coming to the U.S., the flyover, the red carpet treatment, that was huge. And the third thing, John, is Putin didn't give up anything. He didn't say, yeah, we're going to do a ceasefire, we're going to do security agreements. And he didn't do any of that, and we got none of that. And then Trump added, well, the win I already mentioned that Trump got was that Putin said that had he been president instead of Biden, he wouldn't have gone into Ukraine. I mean, that was a huge win for Trump. The other thing that Putin got was there was no concessions, and Trump said that Zelensky and Ukraine need to make a peace deal because Russia's a very powerful nation. And so, again, that plays into the cards of Putin.
Yeah, well, I guess the only thing I would say on that, and I don't disagree with anything you said, Ted, but I think sometimes people forget what actually is the alternative. I mean, I agree that in a perfect world he should have, and maybe they will today and going forward, have the European leaders, Zelensky, and I agree with what you said about Trump saying about Ukraine having to do this. But people need to, I think, understand that this war with Ukraine has really been going on for like 15 years. If you go back, it's not just the current event. It goes back to, getting into the Crimea and all of that kind of stuff. And they have a long, long history. So I guess what I would ask people is what is the alternative? Donald Trump is at least trying to do something. The other presidents, and I listed them like with Bush and of course Hillary, which was Secretary of State, and Mr. Obama, and certainly Biden. I mean, Putin made gains during them. Completely made gains.
Oh, yeah, he made huge gains.
So what is the real alternative?
Well, you mentioned that Ukraine and Russia have been going at it for 15 years. Actually, if you go back through history, it's been going on since the 14 or 1600s. I know at least the 1600s, where Russia has taken them over and they have killed millions and millions of people. And so this is an ongoing conflict. And what is the ultimate goal? I think peace is the ultimate goal, or an environment where people can just live in their country. I can live in my country. You don't invade my country. You don't take any more space from my country. And I think if you look at the Middle East, Palestine and Israel, what is the ultimate goal? I think it's peace. You look at the Ukrainian war, ultimately it's peace. So how do you get there? How do you get there? And how do you prevent a war? How do you prevent the next war? And I think of what we did, our leaders did along with the European leaders, mainly us in World War II with the atomic bombs. We had decimated Nagasaki and Tokyo or Hiroshima to the point that the Japanese just says, we're done, we're done. The Germans said the same thing, we're done. You got them to a point where there was no other option. How do you do that with somebody like a Putin? And I think the best way is have the alliance of NATO for what it was created after World War II, and us standing locked in arms saying, this is what's going to happen. We're all going to sanction you, and we're going to do this, and the European Union is going to have to bite the bullet, and they're going to have to pay maybe more for fuel or source it from the United States. There's many other countries that have oil that would be more friendly to them than Russia. And I think that would be the thing that would force Putin's hand to the table. Maybe not so much him making that decision, but the oligarchs and the business people, the people with all these mega yachts that have been sanctioned. If we came out with sanctions bilaterally through all these countries and put that pressure on Putin, he doesn't have an option. That or he pulls the trigger and starts a nuclear war. But I don't think that would happen. I think his leadership and the people that are fed up with him would overthrow him. I really do.
Well, Zelensky is coming to the White House today and meeting with President Trump and his team, and EU leaders are coming as well. But I think what's, to me, even a bigger deal than the EU leaders is actually the NATO Secretary General is going to be there, which is, to me, to quote Donald Trump in his past, a huge deal, because that's the catalyst that Putin used to go into Ukraine this last time, right, was that they were going to join NATO. So to actually have the NATO Secretary General there, I think is Donald Trump's way of saying, hey, you don't agree to some type of peace deal, then we may have to be forced to have NATO involved in this.
Well, you know what, John, this may play out that what did come out of the first meeting with with Trump and Putin? Not a whole lot, but it may have set the stage for this meeting. And if this is what Trump did or his team put together, let's have this. We know where there's not going to be a lot, but that's going to justify us all getting together. And maybe they'll come out with that. And if he did that, that's smart. That's just smart card playing there. He kind of forced the hand of Putin. We didn't get anything here, so these other nations all want to meet, and we're going to meet at the White House. And it'll be interesting what collectively comes out of that. And if they all agree to putting sanctions on and sticking to those, Putin's going to have to make a decision. He's got two ways to go. Bring it to a close, the war, come to security agreements with Ukraine, or he's going to have to go to war with everybody. And I don't think he wants that.
Yeah.
But he knows Germans have put in $1 trillion into the defense spending, and they're very serious about this because this is on their doorstep, and they're sending a loud signal. And this is another loud signal coming out of that, the announcement of this meeting.
Well, I heard, like I said, on the way into the studio today, I was listening to a conversation about what the possibilities might be. And this lady I was saying earlier, she made a prediction that, my God, I hope this is not true. But she said that both sides, talking about Ukraine and Putin and Zelensky, basically have their own reasons for prolonging the war. And I won't get into all of them. But she said that what she thought might happen is that they settle on an area like Donbass, which is the border there between Russia and Ukraine, and that they may have that be a kill zone, a fighting zone, stop bombing each other internally, and just be a meat grinder perpetually there between that, so both sides get what they want. She was making a case that Zelensky stays in power indefinitely, and Putin is able to do whatever he wants to do to pacify his resistance over there, and of course keep the military-industrial complex going. God, I hope that's not true, but if so, that would really be scary.
I can't imagine that being true, and I don't know who that was, but you think about that. I mean, the lack of respect for human life, and just to do that for the military-industrial complex, I mean, that's atrocious, and it's something that should be banned. And I mean, to me, that's not a solution. That's like having terminal cancer or a very aggressive cancer, and you're treating the rest of the body, but you're not treating the cancer. You know, it's just a no-win situation. And the only people that are going to benefit from that are the people that stay in power, the Putins and Zelensky, and then the war machine. They're the ones that are really benefiting from this at the cost of human life and disruption. And I think that's a very poor strategy, and I hope that's not true.
Yeah, I do too. But you mentioned human life, and I will make this point, and we'll move on. That one thing, love him, hate him, whatever. If you're an honest broker, Donald Trump is anti-war. I think he has really put that forward. He's anti-war, and he's anti-killing people. He doesn't want to see human life wasted. Now, there may be many reasons. I think he's just a good, decent person he doesn't give credit for, but maybe he wants more customers. I don't know. But whatever, he is definitely anti-war, and he's pro-humanity from what and I don't see how you can debate that, but people can, I suppose.
Well, you know, I meant to mention Israel, Palestine, and Iran. You know, you look at what they did there. How long do you put up with somebody saying death to America? You know, and Trump did something about that. He did it very matter of fact. And then you have Kim Jong-un up there, who really is benefiting from this war because they're getting training in their troops, which they haven't had since the Korean War. They're getting a lot of cash infusion from the manufacturing sales of weapons to Russia. So they're really benefiting. And their goal is to unify the Korean Peninsula, which means that South Korea would have to become like North Korea. And that's a no-win situation. I mean, they're one of our biggest allies over there, along with Japan in the Asia Pacific theater. They've got our F-35s. Can you imagine if North Korea got a hold of that technology, if they don't have it already by their hacking complex, military government complex they have there? And so this is why foreign policy is so important. If you have strong foreign policy, John, you're going to have strong national security. You're going to have good trading partners. If you have weak policies, as we did under the Biden and Obama, you know, for Obama to even say that and pat the guy on the arm like, well, I have a lot more flexibility after the election. This is my last term. Just shows you how snaky these people are. But if you have strong foreign policy, and that goes back to Theodore Roosevelt with the Great White Fleet, he sailed around the world. Peace through, or carry big stick, walk softly. And then Reagan, peace through strength. If we have that strong foreign policy, that's peace through strength. And that's what we need to get to. And that should be a national policy, a policy of the United States of America that can't be changed unilaterally by a party or a president. It has to go through Congress. That should be the policy of the United States. We will never see our standing of where we are. You know, when I was in, I got invited to Taiwan when I was the chairman of the Asia Pacific Subcommittee, and they had their Chinese delegation from China that is represented in Taiwan, and they were talking about how Taiwan is, you know, part of, really belongs to China, which it really doesn't. It's never been part of China. I mentioned something, and I've said this on the show before, of what Xi Jinping said in the 19th Communist Party Congress in 2017. The era of China, ERA, the era of China has arrived. No longer will we be made to swallow our interests around the world. It's time for China to take the world center stage. I brought that comment up to one of their communist members from China, and I says, you know, that's a threat to me. That's a threat to the United States, because you're talking about knocking somebody off the center stage. I said, that will not be tolerated by us. And I said, however, the world stage is large enough for all of us to be on there if you want to do that. And that's where we need to be. You know, these countries can be independent. I don't want to dictate to them what they do, but they should be on there on equal terms. If they're going, they're like you joke, the joke you told over the break. If they want to be the big bull,
they want to be the big bull.
Sorry to go on that long.
No, that's quite all right, man. And China definitely wants to be the most dominant player. There's no question about that. Well, let's move on.
They're really the ones that benefit from this.
Absolutely. Well,
they're benefiting from this.
This is certainly an unfolding story, and we'll certainly have to cover what happens at the White House today and the rest of this. We're on live every Monday and Friday, so check us back in same time on Friday, and I'm sure we'll cover some of the events. Absolutely. And we'll try to update you during the week if we can as well on our Facebook sites. We have a Facebook site now actually called the Political Pirate Podcast. And so go there and check it out. But a story we've been covering for the last couple of weeks, it just seems to stay in the media constantly, and it's heating up. And this is about the whole gerrymandering issue and all of that kind of stuff. Well, Gavin Newsom, he's pushing forward this California plan. Well, the polling shows that California voters are opposed to this. Let me read you this quick statistic here, because I think Newsom is clearly running for president. It's one of the reasons why he's doing this.
Oh, no doubt about it.
But a poll of 1,445 registered voters in California by a group called the Citron Center and Possibility Lab at UC Berkeley in Politico revealed that 64% favor the current system versus the 36% who want Newsom's plan. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger has now come out and basically said that they need to keep it the way it is, and he's opposed Newsom, and they had a meeting, and they didn't agree on anything. But let me just say this, and I'll turn it over to you, Ted. This is a huge roll of the dice for Newsom, because if he's successful, it does probably catapult him to the front runner for the Democratic nomination. If he's not successful and it falls flat, I think it might end his run for presidency. What are your thoughts on what they're trying to do in general?
No, I think you're right. I think it's all political. He really doesn't give a darn about those congressional districts. He's been governor for how long, and now it's an issue. They've already got, I forget how many it is, 48 of California's 52 U.S. seats. He wants to bring that up from 43 to 48. They've got 43 out of 52 seats that are Democrat. How much more do you want it gerrymandered? This is a winning situation for him in the state of California, but on the national stage, it just shows you how lopsided the Democrats are. They're not for building a united America. They're for building a united Democrat Party that Ken Martin, not your relative, I'll throw that disclaimer in there, said that they want everybody from the moderate Democrat, if there are any left, to the liberal, to the progressive, to the socialists and the communists. He'll take anybody just so they can have power. And this is Newsom doing the very same thing. The guy's just, he needs to go away.
Yeah, well, this Ted, I want to read this part of it, because if you're wondering why they're doing this, I mean, Newsom is doing it, as I say, because he's running for president. But think about this right here. Their plan isn't to just totally change the system for any, like forever. They plan to ask voters to approve a constitutional amendment that would put new maps approved by the legislature, California legislature,
right,
in effect for 2026. 2028 and 2030 election cycles, and then they would revert back to the independent commission. So what that tells me, translate that into, this is all about stopping Donald Trump, impeaching Donald Trump, electing Newsom or at least some other Democrat to president in 2028. This has nothing to do with fairness or anything else. I think that the fact that they only want to do it temporary for a window of time really shows all you really need to know about this.
Well, it really does. And there was that segment we did, and there was that Democrat strategist, I think he worked with Clinton. And he goes, we don't care what's best. We care what we have to do to win. We don't care if it's unethical. As long as we win, that's what we care about. And I think that's the sentiment. And again, that's how divided the Democrat Party is. They're not looking out. Do any of those phrases that we just talked about in redistricting and gerrymandering a state that's already gerrymandered, does any of that unite America, make it stronger? No, it weakens it. It keeps that divide going. And again, our goal is to educate, motivate, and activate people. People need to wake up. This is what's going on. This is why elections matter. This is why, as uncomfortable as it is, get involved. I know there may be a football game on or your favorite soap opera, whatever it is. Life's uncomfortable. You're not going to get the changes you want in government or maintain the good ones you have if you do not get involved. And it's a pain in the rear end to do it, but it's our duty as responsible citizens.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to switch gears again because, I used to be a Bill Maher fan. Then when Donald Trump got elected, he got so far at, Donald Trump TDS or whatever. But now he's kind of coming around a little bit, not for Donald Trump, but I want to play a snippet from his show this past weekend because he said something very interesting about the Democrats. If we can tee that up, we'll play it. Let's play it. We'll come back and talk about it.
Hillary or Bill Clinton on? Why didn't you have Kamala on during the last campaign? You think we don't ask? We ask these people every week. They say no. It took 8 years and a petition to get Obama on. And these are people, all people I voted for. Think about that. They're afraid to come on the show of a guy who voted for them. The Republicans, they show up. I would love to have AOC on the show, and Mandami and Elizabeth Warren, but I can't subpoena the guests. People ask me all the time.
That, to me, Ted, is a very interesting comment from Bill Maher because he says, hey, I try to get Democrats on, but the big players won't come on the show, and you could speculate as to why. But he also points out, and there's another montage of Republicans that have been on there, that they'll come, and as he said, they'll take their licks and we'll have an honest debate. But he can't have an honest debate with Democratic leaders because they won't simply come on.
No, you can't. And it's like I was saying, I never cared for him because he was so left. Just bad left. And everything the Republicans did, he just bashed. Of course, he did a segment on me when I wasn't going to vote to raise the debt ceiling, but then he changed. And the thing I've always said about him is he seems like a very intelligent guy, very smart. But you've seen his politics change, and this can only have happened by how far the left, the Democrats, have gone to the progressive socialist Marxist side. You think about the people that are standing up on the left. John Fetterman, of all people, are siding more with Trump. John Kerry, which still blows me away, says Trump is right on the border policies. And those are stalwarts within the Democrat Party, but they don't agree with them. And so Bill Maher is another one of those that just says these people have gone crazy.
Absolutely. Well, when he was talking about, and he mentioned Elizabeth Warren, not willing to come on the show, but I got a theory as to why she might not be willing to. And I got a quick video of her. We've played this before, but it's pretty fascinating. This may be why she won't go on there. Check this out.
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline. And I hadn't at that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that. The thing is, he was sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him. Live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right. Fair enough. Look, the question is, what are we going to do now?
Okay.
Tell me about that.
I mean, unbelievable, man. I mean, Elizabeth Warren just exudes excitement, right? I mean, she's sitting there going, I love how the podcaster says, being able to basically stand erect and talk is not really a compliment. It's unreal.
The funny thing is, and this was like all the people supporting Biden as she was, as Kamala Harris was, and all these people that supported him knew that he was in mental decline. It was really a form of elder abuse, how they would not change their word. And she gets caught red-handed on a podcast, and she kind of just throws up her arms like, hey, well, you got me. I was lying. Yeah, like you said, he was standing up and he could talk. So a weekend from Bernie's.
Well, we're going to skip to our last video here, not the one I had teed up for next, but the next one here, because this is a 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast exclusive. Because after Bill Maher said this about Kamala Harris wouldn't come on and all that, we have an exclusive response from none other than Kamala Harris when she was asked why she didn't go on Bill Maher's show. Check it out if we got it teed up.
If you can tolerate it.
Poor hubby. Poor hubby.
Nah. For your benefit, man. We've tortured our audience and you enough.
You're killing me, man. You're killing me.
I mean, Kamala, I was going to play the video where she goes in space, and there's so many videos to choose from with Kamala. But there you have Kamala just cackling, man. Man, we dodged a bullet with her, did we not?
Well,
man?
You know what? They say laughter is the best medicine, right? I mean, we've always heard that. And I agree with that. I mean, you can be in a bad situation, and if you can bring laughter in it, it makes you feel better. And I guess the laughter is the best medicine, is our laughter, laughing that she did not get elected as president.
Yeah. Watching her, though, I have to say I feel a little bit sorry for her husband, man. She didn't win. Now she's got all that time to spend with him, although he probably deserves it, man. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Go ahead, Ted. We're going to close out.
No, he definitely does. And, I hope it does well for her book on her signing tours, that she can laugh all the way around the country.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping she never gets back into politics.
I don't think she will, actually, but that's just mine. But I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like what we're doing. Share what we're doing far and wide. The Political Pirate Podcast. We're on live Mondays and Fridays. And, Ted, I'm going to give you the last word here.
I appreciate it. I hope you folks find this informative. Let us know on your comments that, this was benefit, or change. Let us know what we need to change. This is for the benefit of you, and it's for the benefit of the nation. Getting people educated, involved, as John likes to say, educated, motivated, and activated. That's kind of our mantra for the show, and it really does make a difference. And we need people from all age groups, all demographics. This is not about a political will against one other party. This is about the survival of America and us passing the torch that we have been blessed with to the future generation. We look forward to your comments, your support, and pass the word around. God bless y'all.
What he said. Peace out.
Later.